All right, so we're diving into whether the Bible, has anything to say about suicidal thoughts.
Okay.
We're looking at this article called, I Want to Die. Can the Bible help me when I have suicidal thoughts?
hmm
Heavy stuff, but really important. And I was kind of surprised
Yeah.
by how much the Bible actually talks about it, even though it was written thousands of years ago.
It's surprising. It really is. Yeah.
The article starts off by saying, the Bible's not a psychology textbook.
Right.
It shouldn't replace professional help, but it offers comfort and support.
hmm
And I was struck by how many practical suggestions it gives for dealing with suicidal thoughts.
Yeah. One of the things that really stood out to me was that it talks about connecting with others
Oh yeah.
and how important that is. It's easy to isolate yourself when you're going through stuff like that.
Right.
But, there's a quote in Proverbs that I thought was really great. It
Right.
says, "A true friend shows love at all times and is a brother who is born for times of distress."
Just even the act of telling someone how you're feeling,
Yeah.
I think can make a world of difference.
To get it out. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's huge.
The article also makes this really interesting point about how
Yeah.
we should view mental health with the same seriousness as physical health.
Absolutely.
It even compares it to being sick.
hmm
Like if you break your leg, you go to the doctor. Why should mental health be any different?
That's such a powerful analogy. I think, there's still so much stigma,
Mm.
around mental health.
Yeah,
But this article, it really challenges that. Suicidal thoughts are often a symptom of mental or emotional illness.
right.
So, just like any other illness,
Yeah.
it can be treated. So,
Yeah, and that's where the article brings in God.
right.
It talks about how God cares about individuals.
Mm.
And it uses this really interesting example about sparrows.
Yeah. It's a powerful passage. It says, "5 sparrows sell for 2 coins of small value, do they not? Yet not one of them is forgotten by God. Have no fear, you are worth more than many sparrows."
I know.
So good.
It's such a powerful reminder that even when you feel totally insignificant
Yeah.
or lost,
You're not forgotten. Yeah.
God still sees you.
Yes.
And the article goes beyond just saying that God cares.
Mm-hmm.
It actually encourages you to talk to God directly about your struggles.
Yeah, through prayer.
Right.
Just go to God with it.
It's like prayer isn't just about,
Yeah.
saying some words or trying to be perfect.
Right. Just get real with him.
God wants you to be honest and open
Yes.
about everything that you're going through.
Just lay it all out there.
It even says that God can provide inner peace and strength to keep going.
That's so good.
Yeah, it's like that verse in Philippians. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus.
Right. It's not like your problems magically go away, but
Right.
have that stability.
Yeah.
It's like an anchor that holds you steady.
Yeah. And then the article also suggests doing things you enjoy
Oh yeah.
as a way to kind of
Absolutely.
cope
Take care of yourself.
with suicidal thoughts. which sounds almost too simple, but
It is simple, but it's so important.
Right.
When you're in that dark place, it's easy to forget the things that make you happy.
yeah.
And even small things like listening to music or reading a book or going for a walk.
Right.
It can really shift your perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the article even goes so far as to say, helping others can actually boost your own mood,
Yeah.
which sounds kind of counterintuitive,
But no, it's like, how can I help anyone else when I'm feeling this way?
yeah.
But it's amazing what focusing on someone else's needs can do for you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that you're not just like an island.
Yeah, you're part of something big.
You're part of a community.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about connecting with others, seeking professional help, finding comfort in God's care,
Mm-hmm.
praying, engaging in activities you enjoy,
Yes.
and clinging to hope for a brighter future.
That's huge. Yeah.
What other practical advice does the article offer for dealing with suicidal thoughts?
Well, it also talks about taking care of your physical health.
Oh, interesting.
Which sounds kind of basic,
Yeah.
but it's so important. Our physical and mental health, they're totally connected.
Right.
And the article actually quotes 1 Timothy 4:8. It says physical training is beneficial.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not just about, going to the gym and lifting weights.
Yeah.
It's about treating your body with kindness and respect.
Right. Right.
Getting enough sleep, eating healthy foods, moving your body.
It all plays a part.
It all matters. Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I was most struck by in the article was
Yeah.
how it addresses those feelings of guilt and shame that
That
often
was
come with
dear.
suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, that's huge.
You know, it's so easy to feel like you're weak or flawed for having those feelings.
Right.
But the article offers a different perspective.
Yeah.
It reminds us that God knows our hearts
Better than we know ourselves.
better than we know ourselves, yeah. And it quotes Psalm 139.1. O Lord, you have searched me and you know me.
That's a good one.
Yeah, God sees all of us,
Yeah.
even the parts we want to hide.
The messy parts.
Yeah, and he loves us anyway.
Yes.
You know, the article really emphasizes that
Yeah.
even when we feel unworthy or unforgivable, God's love is bigger than our mistakes.
It is. It's all encompassing and it's unconditional.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
The article does acknowledge that, there's no one-size-fits-all solution
Right.
to dealing with these thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it consistently stresses the importance of grace and compassion, both for ourselves
Yeah.
and for others who are struggling.
So important. We need to approach this topic with sensitivity and a willingness to listen without judgment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well said. And it's important to remember there's always hope.
Always hope.
Healing is possible.
Yeah.
And no one has to go through this alone.
Yeah.
Now, there's one more section of the article that I think is really important, especially if you have a friend or loved one
Uh-huh.
who might be struggling with suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's what to do if someone tells you they want to die,
Right. How to respond in that moment. Yeah.
which can be incredibly overwhelming. Like, how do you even begin to handle that?
Well, the article's really good. It says, first of all, take it seriously.
Right,
Even if you think they're just venting
Yeah.
or being dramatic, you never know.
right.
You want to take it seriously.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely.
What about actually talking to someone who's saying these things,
Mhm.
How do you even approach that?
It can feel so awkward and uncomfortable, but the article encourages us to just listen
Okay.
empathetically without judgment. Just create a safe space
Yeah.
where they feel heard and understood.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about giving advice or trying to fix anything.
Right, right.
Just be present
Yeah.
and listen with your whole heart.
That makes a lot of sense, but I think a lot of people would wonder what to actually say
Yeah.
in those situations.
Yeah.
Does the article give any guidance on that?
It talks about speaking consolingly, acknowledge their pain, let them know how much they mean to you,
Mm.
remind them that they're loved, they're valued, their life has meaning and purpose,
Even if they can't see it at that moment.
even if they can't see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't erase their pain, but
Right.
just confirming your love and support can sometimes make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
It can get them through another day.
Yeah. And I think ultimately encouraging them to seek professional help
Yes.
is really the most important thing you can do.
Absolutely.
You can offer support, you can be a listening ear,
Right.
but you're not equipped to provide the kind of help
No, we're not therapists.
that a trained professional can.
Right, exactly.
And the article even suggests like offering to go with them to seek help.
Yeah, going with them to an appointment
Yeah.
or helping them find resources.
Which is such a tangible way
Yeah.
of showing your support.
It shows you're really there for them.
Yeah.
You're not just saying words, you're actually
Actions speak louder than words.
willing to walk alongside them.
Exactly.
As we're talking about all of this, I'm realizing like how much courage it takes to reach out
It does.
to a friend who's struggling with these thoughts.
It's scary.
Yeah, it can feel really awkward, uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but it's so important to do it
It's so important.
because sometimes your willingness to listen and offer support can be the difference between life and death.
Literally.
It's a powerful reminder that we all have the power to make a difference
We do.
in the lives of others, even in small ways.
We really do. All right. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about all this practical advice for coping with suicidal thoughts,
Right.
the importance of seeking professional help,
Mm-hmm.
that theological foundation of hope,
Yeah.
and what to do if a friend confides in you.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Now, the article also touches on a particularly sensitive topic, which is those who may have attempted suicide in the past.
Right.
It's heavy stuff, but I think it's important to address. So what does the article have to say about that?
Well, it starts off by acknowledging that someone who has attempted suicide may be dealing with a lot of difficult emotions.
Right.
Guilt, shame.
Yeah. I can only imagine.
And even if they have loving friends and family,
Yeah.
they might still feel isolated. Like nobody truly understands
Right.
what they went through.
Yeah. like a burden that's hard to explain.
Exactly.
But here's the powerful part.
Yeah.
The article reminds us that even when we feel totally alone,
Yeah.
God understands.
He does.
And it quotes Proverbs 14.10, which says, "The heart knows its own bitterness." We can't expect others to fully grasp the depths of our pain.
It's true.
But God, who knows our hearts better than we do,
yeah.
He gets it.
He gets it.
And not only does He understand, He's also willing to forgive.
That's the amazing part. Yeah.
The article really highlights that,
Yeah.
that while God values life immensely,
All right.
He also knows that often suicide attempts aren't about wanting to die, but they're about wanting to end excruciating pain.
It's true.
So He offers forgiveness and a path towards healing.
That's the beauty of God's grace, isn't it?
It really is.
He sees past the action itself to the pain that caused it.
That's incredibly compassionate.
It is. And
Yeah.
the article reminds us that even if we can't forgive ourselves, God's forgiveness is still available.
I could see how that would be so powerful
Yeah.
for someone who's, carrying that weight.
It is. It's a game changer. And the article actually quotes 1 John 3:19-20. It says, "Even if our hearts condemn us, God is greater than our hearts and knows all things."
So God's forgiveness is bigger than our guilt
It is.
and shame.
Yeah, which is good news because those things can be crippling, can't they?
Yeah. And the article emphasizes that He wants to be there for us.
Yeah,
He wants to be a source of comfort and healing.
he does. And it even calls him the Father of tender mercies and the God of all comfort, which is so beautiful when you
Yeah.
think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I keep coming back to is how the article balances this practical advice
Right?
with these spiritual truths.
It's not just about therapy or doing things you enjoy. It's about recognizing that there's a spiritual component to this as well,
Yeah.
and that God is there for us.
It's a holistic approach,
It is.
addressing the whole person.
Body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the article also, it dives into some really interesting stories
Oh, yeah.
from the Bible
Yeah.
of people who actually wanted to die.
It's not who you might expect.
Right. And it's not who you'd expect. We're talking like major figures.
Yeah.
Elijah,
Elijah, Job, Moses.
Moses.
Yeah.
These guys went through some incredibly tough times.
They did. And what's striking is how relatable
Yeah.
their struggles are even thousands of years later.
Elijah, for example, he was a prophet.
Right. Performed miracles.
He performed miracles, spoke God's word,
Yeah.
and yet at one point he experienced such deep depression and isolation
Yeah.
that he cried out to God, asking to die.
He was overwhelmed, felt worthless. It's hard to imagine.
It is. It's really hard to imagine. And then there's Job's story.
Oh, Job.
Oh,
Just heartbreaking.
I know. He loses everything. His family, his possessions, his health.
Everything.
And then on top of all of that, he's falsely accused.
Yeah, talk about hitting rock bottom.
It's hard to even fathom that level of suffering.
It is. But you know what? Even in his anguish, he still talks to God. He wrestles with his pain. He questions why this is happening.
Yeah.
But he never loses his faith.
It's incredibly powerful.
It is.
And then you have Moses,
Mhm.
who led the Israelites out of Egypt.
Huge responsibility.
I know. And he faced so much pressure and responsibility
Yeah.
that at one point, he actually asked God to just end his life.
He was done.
Yeah. It makes you realize that
I know, yeah.
even people who accomplish incredible things,
Right.
who are close to God, they can still struggle with these feelings.
Absolutely. Nobody's immune to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why these stories are so powerful.
Right.
They remind us that struggling with suicidal thoughts doesn't diminish your faith.
Right.
It
Exactly.
doesn't make you any less worthy of God's love.
Yeah. It humanizes these figures.
It does.
And shows us that even those who achieve these great things were still human,
Still human.
still vulnerable,
flawed, yeah.
capable of feeling these things.
Yeah.
And it's important to note that these stories don't just present the problem.
Right.
They actually show us how these individuals responded to their despair.
Okay.
Like Elijah,
Mm-hmm.
when he was completely broken,
Yeah.
he poured out his heart to God,
He did.
and God responded with compassion.
Yes.
He sent an angel to care for him
Amazing.
and reminded him that he wasn't alone.
It's like even in our darkest moments,
Yeah.
God is still there.
Yeah. And then you have Job, who, despite all of his suffering,
Yeah.
he keeps talking to God. He honestly expresses his pain.
Mm-hmm.
He questions his circumstances.
He's real with God.
He's real with God.
Yeah.
And ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
through that wrestling,
Yeah.
he comes to a deeper understanding of God's character.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And then Moses, when he was at his breaking point,
Mm-hmm.
he turned to God for help.
He did.
And God, instead of condemning him, actually provided practical assistance.
Yeah, he gave him some backup.
He appointed others to help carry the load.
It's a reminder that God wants to help us.
It is. And, it's so interesting to me how each of these stories offers a different perspective on coping with these feelings. Mm-hmm. But they all point to the importance of seeking help.
Yes.
Both from God and from others.
We need both.
We do. And, none of these individuals face their struggles alone.
Right. They reached out, they expressed their feelings, they found support.
And their stories are a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's hope.
Always hope.
Always hope.
And you know what? They also highlight the fact that the Bible doesn't offer simple answers.
Right.
To complex issues like suicide.
Right.
It doesn't pretend that pain doesn't exist.
Right.
Or tell us to just, snap out of it.
Right.
But it does offer a framework
Yeah.
for understanding those difficult emotions.
Right.
And reminds us that we're not alone.
Yeah.
And there's always a reason to keep hoping, to keep seeking help, and to keep living.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well said.
It's interesting how these stories show that the Bible doesn't try to avoid those tough parts of life.
Yeah.
Like the pain and the despair and the feeling hopeless.
Right. Right. It doesn't sugarcoat anything.
No, it doesn't.
But at the same time, there's this message of hope.
Absolutely. And it's not just about hoping for a better future, but finding ways to cope right now.
Yeah. That's where all that practical advice comes in.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's recap. We've talked about connecting with others, getting professional help, and remembering that God cares about us.
Right.
We've talked about prayer, doing stuff we enjoy, and believing in a brighter future.
Mm-hmm.
What else did the article say can help when we're struggling?
Well, it also says that it's important to take care of our bodies.
Oh, yeah.
It might not seem that important, but our physical health and our mental health are really connected.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It even mentions 1 Timothy 4.8.
Yeah. Physical training is beneficial.
It's funny, I never really thought about that in terms of mental health, but it makes sense.
It's true. If we're not taking care of ourselves, it can make everything harder. So what kinds of things is the article talking about? Like when it says to take care of your physical health, what does this suggest?
Oh, yeah. It mentions exercise and getting enough sleep, eating healthy, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be some big thing.
Right.
Just taking a quick walk can make you feel a bit better.
Yeah, treat your body with kindness. Right.
Exactly.
As we're talking about this,
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to what the article said about expressing our feelings.
Oh, yeah. It stresses that so much.
I know. It can seem weird, right?
Totally.
Like when you're in a really dark place, the last thing you want to do is talk about it.
Exactly. It's almost like you want to just shut down.
Yeah.
But there's this verse, Proverbs 17.4 hint.
Okay.
A true friend shows love at all times and is a brother who is born for times of distress.
It's like saying that we aren't meant to go through this alone.
Exactly. It's about sharing that burden with someone you trust.
And even just saying things out loud can help, right?
Right. It's like it takes some of the power away.
What do you think it is about saying things out loud that makes a difference?
Well, when we keep things bottled up, they tend to get worse.
Right.
But when we talk about it, we start to break down that feeling of isolation.
It's like letting some air out of a balloon.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't fix everything, but it gives you some space.
Yeah, and the article also says that if talking is too hard,
Yeah.
you can try writing it down.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
It can be a good way to start working through your feelings.
I like that because it lets you process things without having to have a conversation.
Right, and sometimes just writing things down can help you see things differently.
It's like you're taking these huge feelings and putting them on paper, which can make them feel less overwhelming.
Absolutely, and I think that's connected to what it says about getting professional help.
Right.
Like we were saying before, if you break your leg, you go to the doctor. And for some reason, we don't think the same way about our mental health.
Right. There's still so much stigma around mental health.
And that's what leads people to think that they can't get help.
Right. Or that something's wrong with them for needing help.
And that's just not true. The article is very clear that suicidal thoughts are often because of mental or emotional illness.
And like any other illness, They can be treated.
Exactly. It's just about taking care of yourself.
Yeah, and that's where a professional comes in, right?
Right. The article is very clear that this isn't something you have to deal with on your own.
It's not just about talking to your friends, though that's important too.
It's about talking to someone who can help you heal.
Right, because professionals can help you understand what's causing your suicidal thoughts, right?
Exactly. And they can give you the tools to work through them.
Yeah, and they can help you access other resources that'll help you feel better.
And it's all confidential, which is really important.
You know what else I really appreciated about the article? The way it talked about God caring for each of us.
Oh yeah, the part about the sparrows.
It gets me every time.
It's such a good reminder that you're not insignificant, even when it feels that way.
It's like that verse, Matthew 10:29 to 31.
Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies? And not one of them is forgotten before God. Fear not, therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows.
It's just so comforting to know that God sees us.
Right. Even the tiniest creatures matter to him.
And if he cares that much about sparrows, how much more does he care about us?
Exactly. And the best part is that we can take everything to him in prayer.
Yes. That's what I love about it.
It's not about trying to sound perfect or anything like that.
It's about having an honest conversation with God.
Yes. Tell him everything you're feeling.
And the article promises that God listens to those prayers.
Absolutely. He doesn't promise that our problems will disappear,
Right.
but he does promise to give us peace and strength.
Like Philippians 4:7 says, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus.
It's like an anchor that keeps us steady when everything feels chaotic.
Speaking of feeling grounded, the article also suggests doing things you enjoy.
Oh, yeah. That's such good advice.
I know, it can be so easy to forget about those things when you're struggling.
It's like the darkness takes over and you can't see anything else.
Right, so even just listening to your favorite music or spending time in nature can help.
Absolutely. It's about reconnecting with those things that make you feel alive.
And the article even suggests helping others as a way to boost your own mood.
I know it sounds counterintuitive.
It does, but why do you think that helps so much?
Well, when we're focused on our own pain, it's easy to feel isolated.
Yeah, like you're the only one going through it.
Right. But when we help someone else, it reminds us that we're part of something bigger.
It's a reminder that we have something to offer, that we have value.
Exactly. And it gives us a sense of connection, which can be really powerful when we're feeling alone.
You know, as we're talking about these practical tips, it's important to remember that they aren't the whole story.
That's right. The article is very clear that there's a bigger picture here.
It's about recognizing that we're not fighting this battle alone, that God is with us every step of the way.
And that he offers hope for a brighter future.
The article talks about hope as an anchor for our lives.
Yeah. It quotes Hebrews 6:19, "This hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast."
It's not just wishful thinking. It's a solid hope based on God's character.
And it extends beyond our current circumstances.
Exactly, because there's a future where suffering will be no more.
That's right. The article mentions Revelation 21:4, where it says, "And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away."
That's a powerful image.
It is, especially when things feel unbearable.
It's a reminder that our pain isn't the end of the story.
God is working to bring about a better future.
And we can have confidence in that because God keeps his promises.
Absolutely. And even when our feelings are all over the place, that's something we can hold on to.
It gives us the strength to keep going.
It does. It reminds us that we're not alone and that there's hope.
You know, I'm struck by how the article connects those practical tips with these big spiritual truths.
It's not one or the other, it's both.
We need those tools to help us cope now, and that hope to carry us through.
And the article does a beautiful job of showing us how those things work together.
Now, there's one more section I want to touch on, especially for anyone who's ever had a friend confide in them about suicidal thoughts.
Okay, what to do if someone says they want to die?
Right. Which can be so overwhelming.
I know, it's hard to know how to respond.
You might be afraid of saying the wrong thing or making it worse.
But the article gives some really good advice.
Okay.
First of all, it says to take those thoughts seriously. Even if you think your friend is just letting off steam.
Yeah.
You just never know.
It's better to be safe than sorry, right?
Exactly. And it also talks about listening empathetically without judgment.
Which I think is so important.
It's not about offering solutions or trying to fix things.
It's about being there and really listening.
Exactly. Just create a safe space where your friend can talk freely.
And let them know that they're not alone.
Right. And that their feelings matter.
The article also says that we can speak consolingly, Let our friend know how much they mean to us
Yeah, remind them that they're loved and valued,
and that their life has meaning and purpose.
even if they can't see it right now.
And while those words are important, the article is really clear that we can't provide the kind of help that a professional can.
Exactly. One of the most important things we can do is encourage our friend to get professional help.
And it even suggests offering to go with them.
Yeah, that can be such a big help.
It shows them that you're not just talking. You're willing to take action.
It says, I'm here for you, in a really tangible way.
You know, thinking about all of this, I'm realizing how much courage it takes to reach out to a friend who's struggling.
It's not easy. It can be really scary.
Yeah, but it's so important.
It is, because sometimes just being there for someone can make all the difference.
It reminds us that we all have the power to make a difference in each other's lives.
We really do.
And sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can have the biggest impact.
So true. Now, the article also talks about something else that's really sensitive.
Okay.
What it's like for people who've attempted suicide in the past.
That is heavy stuff, but I think it's really important to talk about it.
It is, and it requires a lot of sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
The article starts by saying that someone who's attempted suicide might be dealing with a lot of guilt and shame.
I can imagine. That must be so heavy to carry.
And even if they have a good support system, they might still feel isolated.
Right, like nobody understands what they went through.
It's like this invisible burden.
Yeah.
But the article says that even when we feel completely alone, God understands.
That's so powerful.
It is, and it quotes Proverbs 14:10, the heart knows its own bitterness.
Meaning that we can't expect other people to fully understand our pain.
Right, but God gets it.
He knows our hearts better than we know ourselves.
And not only does he understand, but he also forgives.
That's such good news for someone who's carrying that kind of guilt.
It really is. It's life-changing.
The article says that God knows our hearts,
Yeah.
and that a lot of times suicide attempts aren't about wanting to die, but about wanting to end the pain.
Right, and God sees that.
And he offers forgiveness and a path to healing.
It's like he looks past our actions and sees the hurt that's driving them.
It's incredibly compassionate.
And it's not just about God forgiving us. It's about him forgiving us even when we can't forgive ourselves.
That's huge.
It is. And the article quotes 1 John 3:19-20.
Okay.
It says, "For if our heart condemn us, God is greater than our heart and knows all things."
So no matter how much guilt and shame we feel, God's forgiveness is bigger.
Exactly. And he wants to be there for us.
The article calls him the Father of tender mercies and the God of all comfort.
It's beautiful imagery, isn't it?
It is. It's like he's a loving parent who welcomes us with open arms.
No matter what.
You know, one thing that keeps coming up for me is how the article balances the practical and the spiritual.
I know. It's not one or the other. It's both.
It's like it's saying, take care of yourself, but also remember that God is with you.
Right. And that he wants you to be whole.
It's a holistic approach, taking care of your mind, body, and spirit.
That's a great way to put it.
And I think that's such an important message, whether you're struggling right now or you've struggled in the past.
Absolutely. You're not just your problems. You're a whole person who deserves love and care and support.
And there's always hope for healing.
Always.
Wow, this deep dive has been really powerful.
It has.
We've talked about so much, from that feeling of just utter despair
Yeah.
to you know, those first steps you can take, and all the way to the deepest truths about God's love and forgiveness.
It's been a really good conversation.
Yeah, it has.
And I hope that people listening have gotten something out of it.
You know, it's amazing to me how much
Yeah.
wisdom and guidance you can find in the Bible.
You really can.
Like it's so relevant, even though it was written so long ago.
It's incredible. It's like it just speaks to the human experience,
Yeah.
no matter what time period you're in.
It makes you wonder, like, what other amazing things are hidden in there?
Oh, I'm sure there's tons just
Yeah.
waiting to be discovered.
Before we wrap up,
Okay.
I wanted to get your take on one more thing.
Yeah.
You know, we've been focusing on what individuals can do
Right.
and how friends and family can support them.
Mm-hmm.
But is there anything we can do as a society to address this?
Oh, that's an important question.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot we can do,
Okay.
you know, to create a more supportive environment.
Okay.
I think, first of all, we've got to keep challenging the stigma around mental health.
Yeah.
You know, we need to talk about it
Yeah.
so people feel like they can get help.
I agree, because that stigma can be a huge barrier.
It really can. It keeps people silent and ashamed. And I think we also need to make sure people can access mental health care.
Right.
You know, therapy and stuff like that can be so expensive.
Yeah.
And not everyone can afford it, so
Right.
we need to fight for policies that prioritize mental health
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that everyone can get the help they need.
I agree. And what about prevention?
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
There are so many things that contribute to mental health struggles.
Right.
I mean, you've got social and economic inequality.
Yeah.
You've got the pressure and the isolation of modern life.
Yeah, it's like it's all connected, right?
It's this huge web of things.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have to tackle it from all sides.
Okay.
You know, build stronger communities where
Yeah.
people feel like they belong.
Right. Create environments where it's okay to struggle.
Exactly. Where it's okay to say, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And I think we have to look at those societal norms
Okay.
that make people feel so pressured, you know, that make them feel like they're not good enough.
Right. Right. It's a lot.
It is, but I think even small changes can make a difference.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good reminder for all of us,
Hmm.
you know, to just be kind
Be kind.
and to try to build each other up.
Yeah, offer support whenever we can.
Yeah. And to create a more compassionate world.
Exactly, because every little bit helps.
Yeah.
Every act of kindness,
Yeah.
every word of encouragement,
Mm-hmm.
you know, all of that contributes to a world where fewer people feel so desperate.
I love that. And it reminds me that we all have a part to play in this.
We do,
We could all make a difference.
even in small ways.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah, I agree.
It's been such a thought-provoking
It
conversation.
really has.
I want to thank you, our expert,
Of course.
for sharing your insights
You're welcome.
and your wisdom with us today.
It's been great. And thank you to all our listeners for tuning in.
To our listeners, if you're struggling,
Yeah,
please know that you're not alone.
there's always hope.
There's help available.
Yes. And you are so valuable.
And there's always a reason to keep believing
Mm-hmm.
that tomorrow can be better.
It really can. And if you're supporting someone who's struggling,
Yeah.
just know that your compassion,
Mm-hmm.
your understanding, your encouragement, it
Yeah.
means the world.
It does.
So keep those conversations going.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out to people who are hurting,
Yeah.
and let's work together to create a world where everyone feels seen and heard
I love that.
and valued.
Well said.
Yeah.
And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you some new insights,
Mm-hmm.
some comfort, and maybe even some hope.
Yeah.
Remember, you're not alone. Reach out, get help, and hold on to hope.
Beautifully said. And with that, I think we'll conclude our deep dive into this really important topic.